So early on in the pandemic, I noticed a difference in the way of life of Americans that I think contributed to two things. Number one, why we had such a terrible outcome with the pandemic itself, and number two, why so many people have been so negative about various changes in our way of life. You know, how many times during the pandemic have you heard somebody refer to another individual as some kind of entitled Karen or for breaking the rules of the pandemic? Now, I noticed a difference in the way Americans like to eat. You see, I have food allergies. I have food sensitivities, to be more accurate, and I have skin rashes, nothing life-threatening or anything. I also deal with high-functioning autism. I gotta watch what goes into my body. And so I'm always alert to what somebody sitting next to me is eating, because getting the wrong substance on me or in me can really mess with my health. Now, early on, or actually before the pandemic, I used to travel a lot, right? I had a conference, Computer Olympia, that would be held in Asia or Europe, and I had a number of long-distance relationships. At one point in Rochester, New York, at another point in Taiwan, and then at another point in Poland. And so I've been exposed to many, many different cultures. That's what I wanted to say. And I noticed how people in other cultures eat very deliberately. They know when they're eating. Here in the United States, not so much. We got people who are so busy. Though, you know, it's kind of funny because I used to have a coworker who swore she had made a resolution to lose some number of pounds, or, you know, not even just during the new year, right? She would get into a bad situation in her life, and then she would swore she wanted to lose weight, and then she would, because she knew I was health conscious, she would brag about how recently she hasn't been eating a whole lot. I saw her eating all the time. And what was really funny was that she and I are very close. I wouldn't recommend just going up to some random person and doing this, but she would be eating something that she had swore off, and I would point that out to her while she was eating it, and she'd get so defensive about it. She'd get so defensive about it. And she only wanted to eat when she didn't know she was eating it. That's the point I wanted to make. Now, another thing I noticed is that here in the United States, people eat with their hands. In other cultures, in Taiwan, again, people eat very deliberately. I wouldn't say they necessarily eat less, but when they eat, it's an actual event, right? They actually get utensils to eat, right? You go to Taiwan and there's snack foods. You go to a 7-Eleven, right? There's plenty of snack foods over in Taiwan. I think there's a 7-Eleven like every corner of the city. And people actually eat with utensils, right? Very rarely do you go to a 7-Eleven and see people getting a bag of chips and just shoving away, right? Now, 2020, I made a resolution to normalize my relationship with food. And then not long after that, we heard how dangerous it was to put our hands in our mouth. So I also started using utensils more often. Now, I started using utensils for things that you would never think about using utensils for, right? One of my favorite fast food meals, one of the few that I can eat actually, is I'll go to Five Guys and get some French fries, and I'll eat it with a fork nowadays. Now, I noticed a few things about that. Number one was the dirty stares I would get from doing that. I haven't been getting so many dirty stares lately. First of all, I know a lot of people who work at the Five Guys that I frequent now. And second, I think people are starting to accept that the pandemic has kind of forced us to rethink our ways of life anyway, right? Now, there's another thing I noticed though. I tend to eat a lot less if I use a fork, right? At the beginning of the pandemic, back in 2019 when my eating was out of control, I used to eat 2 or 3 large orders of fries. So 2020, I made a resolution to normalize my relationship with food because of how crazy my eating habits were out of control, right? I'd be in the middle of a meeting, and I couldn't wait to get out of the meeting to get to my favorite foods. My girlfriend would say she wanted to come over in 5 minutes, but I really wanted to eat my favorite meal before she came over. Can you come back like in an hour? She wouldn't be available in an hour and miss out on a chance to see her, right? Or she'd come over, but she would lose that feeling, right? Either way, it was a lost opportunity either way. Or I would cause strife with my family. And then the tipping point was I had gotten into a major fight with a roommate, and I got evicted I left the place before it could come down to that. I had come home after a stressful day at work, just about to prepare my favorite foods, and somebody took my food from the refrigerator. Might have been a mistake. I don't mean to say that my roommates stole something from me, but I'm very particular with my food, right? Other food in the fridge that might not be suitable, right? And so I got into a major disagreement with my roommate, and long story short, I caused the scene, and I left that apartment before I could get into more conflict. So when I tell people that I used to have an eating disorder, people think that maybe it's actually now that I have an eating disorder, because they look at me in 2019. I wasn't terribly overweight. And what am I talking about? Their cousin eats like 5 times more than I do in 2019, and they're 40 pounds overweight, and they accept that for who they are. And so people have a hard time believing I had an eating disorder. See, I don't define eating disorder as how much overweight you are or how much you were eating. I define it as how much it was controlling your life, right? I couldn't go to a meeting, have a girlfriend, live in an apartment, or hold down a job back in 2019 because food would just get in the way of all that, right? That's what I meant by I had an eating disorder. It wasn't that I was overweight. I mean, I was satisfied with my weight. That's what allowed me to eat so much, right? Had I been unhappy with my weight, I probably wouldn't have had all those troubles, right? Anyways, but after I started eating with a fork, I noticed that I can get away with, instead of 2 large fries, now I can get away with 1 medium fry. Not to mention, I think at Five Guys, all those portion sizes have gotten smaller because of inflation, right? They don't want to raise the prices on that. So the large fry in 2019 is probably more like an extra large here in 2021, right? And I'm eating a medium now, right? And the other thing I noticed about eating with my with a utensil is that all my stuff is a whole lot cleaner. So I'm recording this in October of 2021. We're hoping to reopen, and I've been playing a lot of games at a club, and I want to get really good at one of these games so I can go to a tournament. Lately, I've been playing a lot of Monopoly Deal because I programmed the AI for it. I hope to learn Yu-Gi-Oh! In the coming weeks, because at the club there are some interesting people playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm having a hard time breaking into the social groups over there. People are very established with their groups. It'll probably take some time, but you know what? Without the food cravings intruding, it's going to be a whole lot easier, because back in 2019, there's no way I could go to a social gathering like that and stay there for 2 hours, right? Food cravings will just drive me away. I don't think they allow you to eat in the store. Well, they don't want you to take your mask off, first of all. And I don't think they allowed it even before the pandemic. So there's no way I could have stuck there for 2 hours in the past. That's what I meant by I had an eating disorder.